when I think about the week of April 26th to May 1st, 2003, there was what came before and there's what came after. It was such a watershed for me that it literally cleaved not only my arm but my life into these kind of before and after, this pre and post Blue John. That I walked into that canyon not only with two hands but just as an adventure out on a day trip for kind of a vacation of sorts. And midway through this hike that was pretty low key for the kinds of things that I was doing at that time in my life, I got to a drop off in this slot canyon in the middle of a very remote desert in southern Utah, and I dislodged a boulder. I pulled it down as I was descending this drop off. The boulder fell from my head as I was now underneath it, and as I put my hands up to try to block it from crashing into my skull, that my hands, one got smashed, and then as the boulder ricocheted, my right hand became trapped by this rock as it slammed into a new spot between these very narrow walls. So this like bus tire sized boulder now was trapping me in a 50-foot deep slot canyon, 5 miles from the nearest dirt road and hours from a phone or pavement or running water or help. I was by myself. I hadn't told anyone where I was going, didn't leave any kind of an itinerary, and so it was just me stuck and trapped, basically standing in my grave. And without being able to get free, I was definitely going to die there, via one or the other kind of mechanisms, either infection or dehydration or starvation, perhaps a flash flood, or just by succumbing to hypothermia during the very cold nights. I suffered through all of these various bodily and mental degradations over not just one day and one night, but 2 days, 2 nights, 3 days and 3 nights, 4 days, 4 nights, 5 days, and the fifth night, I knew that at this point, I mean, I've tried everything there is to try, including trying to cut my arm off to get myself free. And being there, that I etched my name and my birth month and my what I thought was my death month in the wall of the canyon above my shoulder. I used this handheld video camera, sat it on the rock in front of me, strapping my hand, and recorded my will and testament. I mean, my goodbyes to my family and my loved ones. And I was resigned, perhaps, or at peace with, maybe another way to say it, the fact that I was going to die here. There was no more life in front of me, and I found a lot of regrets in my life too, but also I came to I think an understanding with myself about it, to let some of those regrets, just let them be. But as it turned out, it was not the end. I had a vision during that last night, that fifth night that I was there, of a little boy that I saw myself at some point in the future with a handless right arm playing with this little blonde-haired 3-year-old and lifting him up and holding him on my hip, and the eye contact that I had with him told me that this was my future son. And if I was to have a future son, then that meant I was going to have a future. I was going to get out of this place. A few hours later, the sun came up yet again on my 6th day in the canyon, but this time with this renewed hope that I would get out of there. I actually fell into a rage of sorts. I lost control of what had previously been a very controlled experience for me, and in this rage I felt my bones bend, and as they bent I realized that I might actually be able to break the bones, and if I could break them I might be able to then use the knife, which was too dull to cut through the bones, but to use that just on the soft tissues. And this smile came over me. I was euphoric as I went about first breaking one bone and then contorting my body to break the second bone, and then using the knife to cut through the various tissues, including the nerve, which was 1,000 times worse than having that boulder crushing my hand. But even as I got through that most intense pain, I knew that I was going to get out of there. I'm going to die at some point, but I'm not going to die here. I'm going to get out of this place. And sure enough, after about an hour and 5 minutes of working through the amputation, I was free. It was the most euphoric ecstasy that I'll probably ever feel in my life. And I gathered myself after a few deep breaths and picked up my rope, picked up my climbing gear, picked up my water bottle that now was full of urine. And I took a last photograph of this. It was a good riddance photograph of the hand that nearly killed me in the boulder, and I started hiking down the canyon. I made it through a few hundred yards of like third and fourth class canyon until I got to a rappel that I set up and rappelled the 60-foot drop, and I got to a pool of water and I drank from that for about 15 minutes and then started hiking. I walked for almost 7 miles then, slowly losing energy as the adrenaline and just the effects of all of this sleep deprivation and everything else that had been mounting on me. And at the end of this hike, I was just a mile away from my truck, where I had to leave the canyon bottom, about 800 vertical feet of climbing, and at this moment now, a helicopter came out of the sky that had been searching for me and plucked me out of the canyon, and off we fly to the hospital. That it was such a remarkable synchronicity of me getting myself free and out into the open where then I could be found, and that helicopter being there within minutes of when I would have otherwise bled to death. That it was, to me, still an astonishing miracle that I did what I did, but actually that I survived the effect of it and got to medical attention. Putting my life back together after that, again, is this before and after of everything that had happened leading me up to that place, and then where I would go after that. It still stands, even now with being married and having a little 6-month-old boy, Leo, that the experience back in Blue John is still the defining moment in my life of what came before and what came